group alarms. So alarm tactics and strategies are a simple way to create complex escalation scenarios. So this is a screenshot of our basic tactic. For those of you who are familiar with our version 7 product, we implemented this simple call-out list to emulate what you can do in version 7. This lets you create a list of people that will call people in order with retries and delays. And it comes with a standard strategy that implements behavior similar to version 7. What we're going to focus on today are the advanced tactics and strategies. Here we see an example of a linear escalation that can be accomplished using the tools that we have in Enterprise Edition. In this case, we're sending an email to Adam, waiting for a 2-minute delay, sending a mobile alert to Bob, and waiting another 2 minutes and sending an alert to Charles. We can also do complex escalations using decision blocks. Here we see an example of using the severity decision block to route alarms to Bob or Adam based on the severity of the alarm. We can get even more complex. This shows where we can call Adam in a loop 3 times with delays and then fall through to a decision block that looks for severity and alerts Bob using our mobile app. We also have the ability to create sub-tactics. Sub-tactics are a way to wrap up a notification method that someone would prefer. In this case, Adam would like to get alarms over 700 severity sent to his mobile app, wait 3 minutes, and then call him. Other alarms coming into the decision block would be routed to Adam's email, waiting a period of time, and then calling him. You can see where we wrap up that sub-tactic and put it in another tactic and loop it 3 times. So the ability to create very complex escalation scenarios is available with the tool set that we give you with Enterprise Edition. Once you create the tactics, you control them using strategies. Strategies are the rules or policies you use to stop and start tactics. In this example, we see where a new event coming in starts a tactic. You can have other policies that talk about when the alarm is acknowledged, what we do. If the condition changed, we can start another tactic. And when the alarm goes terminal, we can stop. All of these decisions can be utilized to create scenarios for escalation that are unavailable in our version 7 product. We've also included a complex scheduler. It's easy to use, but it does allow you to create staggered shifts, handle holidays, and we include several schedules like this with the product, but it's very simple to create your own. So today we're going to talk about how you would use Enterprise Edition to accommodate this example project. So when an alarm occurs, we want to alert operators and technicians. After hours, we want to alert the after-hour personnel. When that alarm changes state, we should notify all the previously notified connections so everybody's updated. When the alarm gets acknowledged, we can stop the notification except as previously specified, and then after 10 minutes, if the alarm is not acknowledged and over a 750 severity, we want to notify the manager on duty. So I'm going to exit from the PowerPoint real quick and get over to our software. And here you see the home page for WIN-911 Enterprise. This is a good place to start. The icons are laid out in a logical order. You should follow them when you create a project. So under the contacts, you would create a gateway. In this case, we're going to be using mobile 911 as the notification method. So what I'm going to do is jump over to our connections dialog, and I've entered the players for our particular project here in the list of users. So we have the after hours Mary is our manager, Oscar's an operator, and Ted the technician. And as we scroll through there, we can see that Mary has a role called manager, Oscar has a role called operator, and Ted is our technician. And you can create these roles under the roles workspace very simply by adding a role and giving it a name and a color. So any roles can be created. People can wear multiple roles if required, but for our purposes today, each person will have a distinct role. Once we have our connections listed, we then go to our notification. So first thing we want to do is create a tactic that'll handle the first part of our specification. So we start by naming the project or the tactic. And then we can go to our decision toolbox, and we're going to add the schedule decision block. So here we're going to edit this and add a schedule that says the daily 12-hour schedule. What we're able to do now is route alarms that are happening during the day down one leg of the decision block and alarms at the evening time or after hours on the other side. So we'll go to our notification block, and I'll drag and notify all block over here, and we'll edit this to be our after hours. Our other decision block is a notify all that would, well, we have to make a decision here to do a label. We're going to be looking for technical alarms. So in a moment I'll show you how we label alarms and use them in the label decision block. But in this case, I want to send all alarms that are technical to our technicians. The other leg of that decision block is going to route any alarm that's not wearing any label to our operators. So I'm going to drag the another notify all block over here, and this will be our operators. So what we're beginning to do is to satisfy the conditions of our specification, where during the day we will send alarms as appropriate to our technicians, our operators, and then when the shift ends, we'll alert our after hours personnel. So let me save this. I'm going to create another tactic called manager. Here I just want to drag in a notification block that includes our manager, and Mary is our manager. We'll add her to this tactic. The specification did call for a decision to be made here that I probably should add, so let me delete this, add this decision block for severity. As you recall, she wants to be notified for alarms over a severity of 750. So let me change this to 750, and now we can drag the notification block for Mary, our manager. So we'll add Mary, the manager, from the contact list. Now we have two tactics, one for our after hours, our operators and technicians, and marry the manager. The next thing we have to do is talk about how we control our tactics using strategies. And here we have a tactic that's a strategy. On initial event, we want to start our example project tactic. On any state change, we want to re-notify. And then on any upon timer, we want to start the manager tactic. So she wanted to be notified. Hold on a minute. I forgot to say. Now we'll go back to strategies. And upon timer, we're going to start that manager tactic. And when the alarm becomes terminal, we want to stop notifying. So we're able to control these tactics using the strategy workspace. On initial event, we'll start the tactic example, and we'll route those alarms based on the scheduled decision block that we see, the label decision block, and as appropriate, we'll notify people in this tactic. Now, the way we utilize these labels and roles is in the alarm, we create a data source called OPC server. We're actually talking to an OPC server in this demo, and you can see here it's very simple to create a connection. This OPC server is running on the local host. You can browse for servers out on the network or on the local machine to add servers. And in this particular case, we've added some alarms. And you can see that we brought in 3 alarms. One of them we labeled technical, and we have the ability now to assign that to a specific strategy. So in order for us to work properly, we want to assign this alarm to the example project, and it's wearing the role technical, and we'll get routed to anyone wearing the technical role. We can also look at the other alarms that we have in the system. We can create alarms on a given system. This is a digital, so we could say if it's equal to 1, we can create an alarm with a digit of 1. We can create severity here. In this case, we won't assign any labels, but we want this alarm to be assigned to the example project strategy as well. We'll save this, and we'll do the same thing with this tank valve. We'll add an alarm condition to that. And you can add as many alarm conditions you want to a tag. This is a very powerful feature of the OPC connection. And we have Boolean values that you can utilize to create any type of alarm that you want. So as you can see, this is assigned to the default strategy, so we want to assign this to the example project strategy. So this is how we utilize the tools that we have in Enterprise Edition to create complex escalation scenarios. To review, we have the contacts where you can create email, mobile, SMS, or voice. In our demonstration here, we've used mobile. And when you create a connection for mobile, You basically create the name, the device ID, in this case for the Apple or Android device. You can give it the schedule that you want. The alarm formatting is available here for the mobile app as well as app options. But today I wanted to focus on the ability to use tactics and strategies as well as roles and labels to accommodate any kind of alarm escalation scenario that you could run into. And with that, we'll return back to the PowerPoint presentation and open it up for questions.
Okay, our first question. In WIN-911 Pro, an alarm can only belong to a single call group. In Enterprise, can an alarm belong to multiple call groups?
So this is Stephen Rivas. In Enterprise, you're assigning an alarm to a strategy. And so a strategy is kind of similar to a group, except that you can do much more with a strategy than you ever could with a group. So to quickly answer your question, every alarm can only belong to one strategy, but with a strategy, you can control your escalation to do more than a group ever could. So, for example, in what Frank was showing you earlier in the strategy rules, you can say when a new alarm occurs, set off one particular tactic, which has a certain contacts within it. Then if it changes state, you can tell it to start a different tactic or to notify a different set of people, or if it changes to a particular state. Let's say you wanted to, when it goes inactive, you want to notify a different set of people, or you want to perform some action like an acknowledgement. You can say you can have it do all of those things. So again, to answer your question, you're still assigning an alarm to a single strategy, which is representative of a group, but you have more control over the escalation with the strategy than you did with the group, where the escalation was more or less hard-coded.
Another element there is the ability to label specific alarms within the strategy, so you can utilize the label decision block to route alarms as well.
Okay, our next question. Can different components of the enterprise configuration interface be integrated into an HMI? For example, GEI fix, screen, windows, graphic, and if so, is there an additional fee for this functionality?
So all the GUI interfaces that you've looked at today are in a web browser. So if you want to embed one of those pages into your HMI screen, you can do that. We do have some customers with Rockwell software who have embedded certain GUI screens within their HMI screen so they can get to the configuration that way. So yes, that's possible. There's no additional fee for it. It's just, to us, it's just accessing the GUI, so there's nothing to license there.
Next question. What voice notification method does WIN-911 support and recommend for virtualized environments?
So for voice, we have two options, voice over IP and TAPI, which is an analog modem. So if you're in a virtual environment, you're likely not wanting to connect any hardware to your system. So you would want to use voice over IP because it's a software-based solution. So if you have an in-house VoIP server, as long as it supports SIP or SIP, then you'll be able to connect WIN-911 to that, and you can make phone calls using it. You do have access to 8 channels with VoIP, meaning I can make 8 simultaneous calls with Enterprise. If you do want to go with the TAPI route or the analog modem route, that's a one phone line solution, which means you can only ever have one call going at a time, whether it's inbound or outbound. And just one more thing, on the VoIP connection, you can reserve channels or lines for either an inbound call or an outbound call. So you can always set an inbound line so an operator could call in at any time.
One of the things I didn't cover that I wanted to in the presentation was some of the properties of the notification block, and maybe Stephen can amplify the ability to make them synchronous or asynchronous. This determines whether or not we wait till a notification is completed or we go into a broadcast mode, so to speak.
Yeah, just to touch on that, so in the version 7 product, everything was asynchronous, so you had to wait. So if the first one went through, you had to wait for for it to complete before it would move on. But then you would also have 2 different queues, if you will, in version 7. You had a text queue, which was for SMS and email and paging, and you had a voice queue. So they were, some of it was synchronous and some of it was asynchronous. So it could have been confusing to set up your escalation that way. In Enterprise, we give you the option to specify what you want. The default behavior when using an advanced tactic is to be synchronous, meaning if I had 5 notification blocks for different people in my tactic, I'm going to send all of those as quickly as I possibly can. So if I hit the first block, I'm going to send it, and then I'll immediately hit the second block, third block, fourth block, fifth block. But if I don't want to do that and I want to wait between them, you can turn on an option for asynchronous notification, which means if I'm doing a voice call, I want to call the first person and I want to wait until that call is complete before I move on to the next one. So if depending on how you want your escalation, you have the option for both. And there are no separate queues anymore. I mean, so if I'm doing a voice call and then I want an SMS notification or a mobile notification after that, they're all running within the same queue if you're using asynchronous. If you're using synchronous, then everything is still in the same queue. It's just all going at one time. And then those notifications are delivered as quickly as a notifier can deliver them, and that's going to depend on the technology you're using. Obviously, a mobile app is going to be able to deliver alarms much faster than an SMS modem.
Another property of the notification block is the ability to ignore schedules. So if you want to put a notification block in the tactic and just notify everybody regardless of their schedule, there's also a setting for that.
Okay. Can employee schedules be imported from outside sources like Excel?
Not currently. Right now, all the schedules in WIN-911 have to be created within WIN-911. We are looking into integrating with Microsoft Exchange so that you can create schedules there and import them into the software. So that is on our roadmap for we're thinking maybe next year. But right now, it's all owned by WIN-911.
Another aspect of that would be our mobile platform. Version 3 is being designed and worked on at the moment, and we're looking at the possibility of users being able to manipulate their schedules using the mobile app.
And just to touch on schedules real quick, you can have a schedule for each individual person. That's one way to go. But you can also reuse the schedule for multiple people. So if you have a main schedule that all operators are going to use with holidays, holidays taken out and so on, you can use that schedule over and over and over and over again. Or if you want to create a specific schedule for somebody, maybe it's a shift schedule, then you can do that as well.
Is the tactic flowchart animated such that it can be viewed during testing?
No, the GUI part of it is not. But there is a tool that Frank did not showcase today, which is called the WIN-911 Log Viewer. When you're using that tool, you can drill down into an alarm, and there is a tab on that screen that says Tactic Execution. And in text, it tells you how it ran through your tactic. So you can see which route it took through your tactic. It's not a graphic-based solution, but it is text-based, and it should do exactly what you're wanting to do. Just won't be so pretty.
Stephen did a demonstration of that in our first webinar. So if you go to our website, you can find that description on the overview that we did in our first webinar.
And likewise, you can look at the strategy execution. So if you want to look at which triggers were hit in the strategy and what the action it took for that trigger, you can see that in the log viewer as well. So you can see the strategy execution and the tactic execution. And you can also see who had been notified and whether that notification was successful or not. So.
Okay, is WIN-911 periodically checking the database, or is it checking for an event change in a specific value in the database?
So I'm not sure what you mean by database. I mean, if it's OPC, if we're monitoring OPC values, when an OPC item is updated, we see that update, and then we evaluate the change. This is going to be, the way this is done through the different direct connects is going to vary. It's just depending on the toolkit. But if you're talking about the configuration is runtime all the time. So as soon as you make a change to it, there is an app server that writes the change to a SQL server. That's where we store our configuration. And it lets the runtime know that there has been a change in the configuration, so that change takes effect immediately. So there's no restarting of anything. You just go ahead and hit the save button. As soon as you hit the save button, it's live. Earlier, when Frank was doing the demo, you saw he didn't save that tactic, and as soon as he hit the save button, it was available back on that other screen. So all your changes are immediate.
From a data source point of view, most of our connections are a publish and subscribe connection.
All right.
Do you recommend using decision blocks for schedules or the contact scheduling? Are there advantages or disadvantages to either method?
Yeah, so that's one of the things where there are going to be multiple solutions to a particular problem, right? So if I have, let's say I'm using a notify all block, and that's tied to 20 different people, and those 20 different people all have different schedules, then do you need the decision block? I suppose that's up to what you need to accomplish. But what Frank was showing earlier was a scheduled decision block to say if it's off hours, let's go ahead and notify a certain role. So it makes it a little easier to see what's happening if you need to edit the escalation or you're just trying to visualize what the system's trying to do. I think it's easier to see in a tactic what you're trying to do with the escalation than it would be if you had 20 different people with a bunch of different schedules, and you'd have to go through each connection to see what its schedule is and so on. What Frank talked about earlier was, I think it was that on each connection that you drop in, you can override their schedule anyway. So when you drag a connection block in, there's a little checkbox there that says ignore schedule, and it doesn't matter what their schedule is. If it hits that block, it's going to notify them. So it really depends on what's easier for you. We made the software just about as flexible as we could. So there are going to be different ways to solve the same problem throughout the software, and that we'll leave that to you guys to determine what's best for you, or what's easier, what's the best way to organize your escalation. I think that's what it's really about, what's easier for you to maintain, and what's easier for you to visualize how the escalation is working.
Okay, how easy is it to migrate from older versions of WIN-911 to the enterprise?
Currently, Enterprise is a totally new product, as you can probably imagine after seeing it. Right now, there is no migration method. You can contact our support department, and we can do our best to assist you moving some information over. We do plan on creating an import utility or migration utility to take as much as the version 7 configuration and dump it into the Enterprise configuration, though because the products are so different, it's never going to be a one-to-one solution, but it will bring in things like your connections or your alarms that you're monitoring.
And with Enterprise Edition, as compared to version 7, we do have multiple direct connects, like for iFix, factory talk alarm events, and we're currently working on one where InTouch right now. So the import method, either using filter subscription or being able to import alarms in from a .csv file, is something that will be available.
Yeah, and another thing that I'll just say about migration is that, look, we do support the direct connects, most of the direct connects from version 7, but we've done them in a different way, where our main goal is to be able to give users the ability to create dynamic escalation, which means using filters rather than importing individual tags, so you're not maintaining 2 separate alarm lists. And using those roles and using those labels, which are not going to relate to version 7. So in a lot of cases, it may be best just to start new, but I can also understand why you would want to bring in 100 contacts, because you don't want to re-enter 100 contacts, so I totally understand that. But using filters in place of individual tags is going to give you the ability to have a dynamic link to your SCADA system. So if you add in, for example, we've added this for iFix. In the past, you had to import individual blocks for iFix, but now we'll give you the ability to, in Enterprise, to create a filter or a subscription to iFix, and you can set filter criteria that says, does the alarm name have this in it, or is it part of this alarm area? So, for example, you can create in iFix an alarm area called WIN-911, and as you create items in iFix, as long as you add it to the WIN-911 area, it automatically is added into WIN-911. So you're not having to maintain 2 separate alarm lists. So the software may be different enough that you don't want to import everything, but there are some parts that I totally understand why you would want to import it, and we'll be working on that next year.
Okay, how do I instruct WIN-911 to not send any no data alarm emails? It's considered a nuisance alarm for my company.
So a no data alarm, I'm going to guess by that you mean a COM alarm? I mean, I guess that's what I'm going to have to assume that you mean by that. In some of the data sources, for example, an OPC, you can create a quality alarm, and if it's a quality alarm, you can use label decision blocks to omit escalation for it. If it's a direct connect like Factory Talk or iFix, we provide a checkbox that just says ignore COM alarms, and we don't send the COM alarms out. And as we add new data sources into Enterprise, we're always exploring the option to ignore COM alarms if we can. It's going to vary from data source to data source depending on what SDKs and APIs are available to us, but we are including that functionality in OPC, iFix, and Factory Talk at the moment.
Okay, can you show us the equivalent of WIN-911 Pro's Alarm Log Manager?
I guess I can show it to you. Let me have to take over Frank's machine here. I don't know that Frank created an alarm, so let's see if there's anything in it. This is it here. It says WIN-911 Log Viewer. So we'll start that guy up. The log viewer is reading out of a SQL file. We're currently using technology called SQL Local DB, which is just as it sounds, it's a local database onto this machine. That way, if you are using a remote SQL server, if you lose that connection, you can still log to the database. So it looks like, I don't know that Frank has anything in here. And let me just jump back. Yeah, so there's nothing in here. Let me take a look at what we've got. I would just like to configure something for you guys so you can see how it looks. So he's got a freshwater zone 101, so let's just go ahead and set that guy off. I think it was this guy. Is that the right tag, Keith? No, it was tank pump flow.
Okay.
Oh, there. No, it was the right one. So here you can see that the alarm has come into the log viewer. This log viewer is going to auto update. The old log viewer, you had to manually hit the refresh button. But this is also going to take place of the alarm monitor window. So there's a separate program just for this. So as the alarms enter in here, they'll just continuously update. If I want to select an alarm like this, I can hit this Act Selected button, put a comment, act it, and you'll see that it gets act. And so what I think you're looking to see is the that tactic execution and the strategy execution. And we'll get to that in just a second. But what you can see here are all the notifications that were sent out, and I don't believe the mobile 911 is actually set up, so it's probably none of those are going to be successful. You can see an alarm got acknowledged by the log viewer. So you can. This is the particular Windows user account I'm in. If a notifier, an acknowledgement came in from a notifier, it would show the name of that connection and which notification method it was. So here is that strategy execution I was talking about. So here is the initial event, and I guess I changed the state of it. So on the initial event, it took this particular action, which was to start a tactic called notify all, and then the any state change. Oh yes, I acted, so that was what changed. So you can see that it says act change, so it will specify what about the alarm had changed and what action it took. So it's going to notify the previous recipients. And this one is set to a notify all tactic. So what it's done is well, first you can choose which tactic, because several tactics can run within a strategy, but this one only has one. It starts, here's the start block, it moves down, you can see that with the down arrow, and it hit a block. It's a notify all block, you can see that there. And so that notify all block went through the system and saw that you have 4 connections throughout the whole system. It enumerates them here, Oscar, Ted, Mary, and then an after hours connection. And so it's going to send notifications to all 4 of those guys. It's going to finish, and you can see this is synchronous, so it's pretty much immediate, one after another. And then it ends, and then your tactic is ended. And we also track the state changes. So that's the log viewer.
So in addition to an alarm summary or monitor window, that alarm log viewer is a great tool for integrators to see how their tactics and strategies are working together. I think we have time for a couple more questions if we'd like to.
Okay, we have one, let's see, has the iFix Service Pack 2 issue been resolved with Enterprise Edition?
We're working with GE right now. They have found the solution, and they have a SIM that will be available soon. I want to say it's probably going to be by the end of the month, but don't hold me to that, and don't call GE and tell them Steven told you that. But it should be very soon. Like I said, we found the problem, and they created the solution, and we're just waiting for that to be released by GE. So yes.
And this will be our last question coming up.
Okay, a while back we were told that a newer version of Enterprise would be coming out that contains specific enhancements for iFix. Is that version now available? And if so, is the upgrade of the software straightforward to install on my own?
So the we did a bunch of updates for iFix in just recently, and we released that version just a few weeks ago, and it's version 3.16.15. So that's available right now. If you have installed previously version 3 of anything, the install is going to be really straightforward. If you have version 1, it's probably not going to be as straightforward. In fact, you have to upgrade to version 2. You have to get a new license and then upgrade to version 3. And I would highly recommend, if you call our support department, we'll walk you through it and pretty much do it for you. So feel free to contact our support team, and we'll assist you with that upgrade. But yeah, that version was released, and so far it's looking pretty great.
As far as
I'd like to point out. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, I was just going to add that we do have additional questions, but unfortunately we don't have time to address them all, but we will reach out to each of you and try and answer those questions specifically for you.
Before we close the webinar today, we wanted to talk a little bit about our integrator program. For those of you who are involved, we offer training, development licenses, product discounts. We have an integrator resource portal that's available for you to use with assets that would help you integrate and sell WIN-911 to your customers. We also put you on our website, and if you have any new logos or anything that you would like to add or change to our website, please contact Michelle, and we'll see that those changes take place. The integrator program is a very successful way for us to work with integrators, and we have over 250 integrators in the program, and would like to have more if you're interested. Michelle, would you like to talk to them about website listings and case studies in depth?
Yeah, well, we are still working on a couple fixes that we have on our website. If you do see any information regarding your company listing, and we need to update any of that information, whether it's a logo, website, phone numbers, contacts, please email those to me at michellec@win911.com. Additionally, we are very eager to speak with you to build some case studies, end user stories or case studies. We would love to have any opportunity to promote your work as well as the wonderful experiences that the users are having with WIN-911's products. So if you have anything that you'd like to share, we do offer some incentives for that as well. So please, reach out to me, contact me via email. Let me know a good time to contact you, and we can go from there and make it a joint effort. So we would promote you as well. So just contact us.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you all for attending. I would just like to add that you can go to our website and download a fully functional 30-day demo of Enterprise Edition. And for any of you who would like a deeper dive into the whole experience of using Enterprise Edition, we'd be happy to set up webinars for you on a one-to-one basis or company-wide. So please contact us if you're interested in that, and look forward to seeing you on our next webinar coming up next month. We'll probably be going over how to utilize some of the notification methods that are included in Enterprise Edition. Thank you again for attending, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
And additionally, we will make sure to email you with a recording of today's webinar if you would like to enjoy that again or share with some of your colleagues. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar.